Man.
And we back.
And we're back.
It's as if we've never been gone.
Yeah.
Almost.
Said bean.
Bean, that's
Never
the correct
been
way to say that word.
It's
No, roll with me. We're going to do this now that you've said that. That is
Yeah.
the correct way of saying that word.
bean?
There's got to
Yes.
be an exception.
Like a kidney bean?
No, like
Sean Bean?
Like where have you like where have you been? Bean is the correct way to say that.
I think you're right, but I don't like it.
What a strange way of putting that. Because if you
Oh
take
my
something like, for example,
Seen.
seen in the past tense, like you see something in the past tense is seen, right? So why wouldn't bean spelled exactly the same
It's gotta
way
be
but for the
it's gotta
first
be
letter?
an exception.
Why?
Just because it's English, there's always an
just
exception.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there. Being English,
Mm.
I'm going to go ahead and claim the authority needed to make a ruling right here, right now on that.
You lost
Bean
that
is
July
the correct-
4th, 1776, bro.
Savage.
Fair. I'm going to let that one go.
Oh my gosh. Well, what is up, everybody? Man, it's been, I think, Nathaniel, you were saying it's been 6 months since
6
we've
months.
been back in a
Also
podcast
known
form.
as half a year.
Okay.
I thought I was going to say the other thing.
I didn't know what you were going to say. That's why I paused. I was like, where's he going? My gosh. Well, it's so good to be back with you guys. Listen, we are, well, actually, before we get into that, what have we been doing for 6 months? Some people have come up to me through the weekends and be like, dude, we miss you guys on the podcast. Where have you been? What have you been up to?
I never left this room.
You've been in here for 6 months?
They don't let me out.
That
I
explains
can
a
only
lot.
get out for the podcast.
We never recorded the podcast in this room.
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping they don't realize. But now you ruined it.
Oh
Well,
my
I
gosh.
think so. Where have we been?
Yeah, where have we been for
been
6
for 6 months?
Where have we been?
Where have we been?
Where have we been?
I mean, right before Christmas was, I think, our last podcast, right?
Correct.
And so Christmas running
Little busy.
into Easter is
Mhm.
probably one of the busiest time periods in the church. And
Yeah.
so it's just
He's got Christmas, then you're like New Year launch,
totally.
then
and
you're right.
then
Then
you're,
Easter was early.
yeah.
Oh, yes, it was this year.
Now then Mother's Day.
Oh, and then you go into
Into
Mother's
kids
Day, then
camp,
you go
into
into Father's
Father's Day,
Day, kids camp.
into-
Right.
Exactly. So it's just that's a really busy part of the year. And so for me, I was kind of embroiled in all the things that come around that season. And yeah, it just got really, really busy for a short
Right.
6 month period.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say too, even with those holidays like coming up, we're talking about them months prior. So although like Christmas happens in December and Easter happens in March, April, like we're talking about those things months in advance. So the ramp into
You're talking
it
about
is-
Easter during Christmas,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
your favorite thing to do.
Well, it's the worst, but that's what it is. Are you
James getting a phone
you
call.
good?
Yeah, I was just checking we're live. We're
Oh,
live.
for sure. I thought
Yeah.
you were gonna phone call. I was
For
like,
those
oh.
of you, yeah, I'm just gonna take this
Wait,
real
we're
quick.
live?
Huh?
No, we're live.
I thought this was going to be recorded.
No, we're live.
Both.
We're live right now. Both
Yes,
and.
and.
Oh man, we got to talk about this.
So
again.
people will
Yes,
listen to
and.
this back, and at that point, we will not be live.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're listening
I'm
to
with
this
you.
in 2030, in
My face may not
2030,
show it, but I'm with you. The eyes of somebody who does not understand what's happening.
if you're listening to this in the future, Taylor Swift was a great president.
nice.
Oh no!
Wait,
Well, that's divided all the comment sections.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Well, okay, yeah. So for me, yes, what I've been up to in these past 6 months, it's been mostly that. It's just keeping up with. I mean, the church has been growing too, which is such an exciting thing. So that's just what we've been doing, just keeping up with like still looking and growing teams and like discipling people well and making sure that weekends happen and all that other fun stuff that we've been doing for the past 6 months. And that's also part of the reason why we've gone down to once a month. It's just because there's such a demand on us as ministry leaders for the growth and to maintain the growth of the church. Like it's just, it became really hard to do this every single week. So now here we are.
yeah, I have a boss now. I can't be goofing off with you guys every week.
That's right. We hired Pastor. He was supposed to be with us today, Pastor Bjorn. For those of you that
But
don't
he is
know.
not with us.
Yeah, he's not with us. We invited him. Let's be clear. We invited him, but he had other stuff to do because we got kids camp coming up. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, he had to do that. So Nathaniel, what
Yeah,
have
I
you
do
been
have
up
a
to
boss
for
now.
6 months, my guy?
Just having a boss. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. My schedule works a little bit differently than the church one. Like,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have the same like ramp up points. For me, this spring school year is a big deal. So like kicking off in January and
Sure.
then running into May, like just running hard, like let's get through the school year. Let's get all this stuff taken care of. We did have our Easter stuff going on and all that
Right.
kind of thing. And then preparing for summer because summer's a big deal in youth ministry because the kids are out of school, so they
Right.
can actually do stuff. And I would say they don't have sports, but there are sports happening right now practice and training and stuff like that
Sure.
for the next school year, which I think blows my mind.
That is pretty
Like,
crazy.
A student came up to me on Tuesday and she was like, I skipped my practice, my shoot, I hope she doesn't watch this because I forgot what it was. I think it was like wrestling or something. I'm skipping practice because, but I'm not gonna be able to come on Tuesdays anymore because every Tuesday and Thursday through the summer we're like conditioning and practicing. I'm like,
Wow.
bro, it's
For
like
next
you just
year?
finished. Yeah, and she's an
Wow.
8th grader going into high school, so it's like she just finished junior high, and high school's like, all right, you ready to come hang out with us now? And
Goodness.
it's crazy, man.
Wow.
So, anyways, yeah.
Well, dude, I was actually going to ask too. I mean, you jokingly, you're like, I've been busy having a boss, but like, talk.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, as it was a joke, I mean, it kind of is true, right? Like, Bjorn he was very new addition to our staff. So, what has that transition been like for you in figuring out, like, what that means for you in junior high ministry and him taking high school and doing all that? Like, what does that?
Yeah,
look
well,
like
Bjorn
for you?
paid me to say that he's the best, absolute,
Yeah.
the greatest, and I hope he watches this just to make good on his promise.
We
But
love
no,
you, Pastor B.
No, honestly, bro.
Yeah.
That guy, I am so blessed for to have that guy in my life. But also, man, I do not envy his job. He got thrown right into. It's like when it's like he's an action movie star. And he like parachutes down, but he's like running in the parachute. And then, like, as soon as he got here, it was just not physically possible. But as soon as he got here, it's like, he's like off to the races. Because I mean, he got here, he was planning the rest of spring for high school, planning the summer, doing kids camp, doing graduations, doing and I'm just like watching him, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this guy is like, but he's like so capable, and he's so wise, and he's like so able to manage all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That just really blessed to see him, and as things kind of slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And he kind of catches his breath. I'm like really excited to work with him that much more.
Sure.
So, anyways, it's been really good,
Dude,
but I
that's
don't
awesome.
envy his onboarding. That's for sure.
Yeah. I
'Cause
get it.
We have a lot going on here. And
Conditions are less than ideal.
it?
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for kind of updating, I guess, the people that are watching, and even honestly, even for me, because there's some questions that I haven't really asked you guys, like what's been happening in your world for the past several months, and so thanks for catching up. So for those of you guys that are watching, I just wanted to let you know too, like as we had said, we're changing up the schedule a little bit, so we're gonna go once a month instead of every week like we used to. And some of the differences there too also include that we changed our name. So now we are What Are Your Thoughts? Which actually this was unintentional. Like that was just the name. And then our graphic designer, Zach, was like, dude, if you abbreviate that, it spells the word wait. Kind of funky.
Yeah, the British version.
Yeah, there it is.
Whoa, I'm not going to let that go.
Kind of funky spelling, but WAYT,
Yeah.
wait, which I thought was really cool. I was like, dude, that's awesome, right? And so for those of you guys that were hanging out in the load screen, or maybe you're going to watch this back later or whatever, you'll kind of see that logo sort of trickling around here and there versus what it used to be when we were called the Sermon Review Podcast. That also means that the content that we're going to be delivering to you will also be a little bit different because we're not here, every week to review the sermon. So we're actually going to be asking really, really awesome questions and just having really good conversations. And so part of the mission of this podcast now is going to be for the people that are here in our church, like are here and they're connected and they serve or they attend in any way. We want to bring you in closer to what happens behind the scenes here at the church. Because believe it or not, we're not just sitting around waiting for the weekend to happen.
Really?
We're shocker, right?
You're not just sitting in your office listening to worship music, just
I wish. That
waiting
sounds
for
so nice.
just soaking it up. Yeah.
That sounds like a dream job.
You gotta like meet with people, do
Waiting.
stuff. Like,
Oh, come on. Well done.
You're welcome.
Well done. All right, I'll give you some snaps. That was really good.
Yeah.
But no, we're planning, we're doing things, and so part of this is also to kind of let you into like what is happening in the church, in hopes that you'll be able to come and see and be a part of what God is doing here at Shelter Cove. So that's a little bit about the podcast and what we're going to be doing moving forward.
Nice.
Sound all right?
Yeah, Victor's our captain, so we are just following his lead.
All right.
Yeah. He looked at me, it was like Captain Phillips. He looked at me the other day and he said, "Look at me, I'm the captain now." So
Wow. Well, I'm pretty sure that never happened, but it sounds pretty epic.
Also, can't recommend that movie.
yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Even though it has Tom Hanks in it.
yeah,
Tom Hanks is in that movie?
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure he is Captain Phillips.
I think he's the
Oh,
titular
is he
role. Yeah.
I've only
Yeah.
seen that.
He doesn't play like 18 characters like he did in like, Polar Express.
Polar Express, right? Yeah. Okay, so going into the content for this podcast, I did tell the guys to come up with 3 questions, to which they will pitch here live on camera,
Like Shark Tank.
like Shark Tank. And then what's going to happen is we're going to pick the one that's most interesting, and we're going to discuss that for a little bit. So, who would like to start?
James.
James.
I can start. I'll tell you now. You're going to be slightly disappointed because I only have 2 questions.
Oh,
so,
bummer.
but
That's
I'm
okay.
confident. I'm confident in the questions that I have. I think that there's some really great conversation to be had around these questions. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
let me give it to you.
Yeah, let's
Question
go.
number 1. I thought it would be really good to explore how is the culture and the idea of celebrity, the idea of fame, and just a celebrity culture. How's that filtering into churches, and is that a good thing?
That's great.
Wow.
So that's question 1.
Good topic.
Question 2 is social media, and by extension,
Here we go.
phones or digital devices. Is it a distraction to the Christian life? Can it be used as a tool of discipleship rather than distraction?
Ooh.
Those are the 2 questions that I have.
Dude, those are.
So that was technology specific. You say smartphones or
I said social media
Social
specifically,
media. Okay,
but I
yep.
think you can take that conversation and kind of broaden it and say technology in general, smartphones, technology specifically that you can take with you.
yeah.
Is that a distraction to the Christian life? Can it be a tool of discipleship rather than distraction?
Wow. That's great.
Dang, that's tough. I'm voting for the celebrity one though.
Yeah.
That's my vote. What are you?
Oh, we'll vote right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, really on the spot.
Yeah.
I guess it's 50-50.
Do I get to choose if it's a tie?
Yes, you're the tiebreaker.
Excellent.
Yeah, you're the tiebreaker.
You know what? I would like to pick. So I have 2 of my 3 questions are like adjacent to yours, and so
Okay.
I'm trying to think like if we snag one of yours, maybe we can snag the adjacent one. You know. So yeah, let's do celebrity one. I like it.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
I think it's a great question. I think it's timely. I mean, you mentioned jokingly
Yeah.
about Taylor Swift. I think
Mhm.
the whole celebrity, the idea of celebrity has kind of culminated in this, figure of Taylor Swift. She's the most famous person on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how is that filtering into churches, and how does it affect
Imagine she
the
starts
way
a
that we do
church.
things?
Oof.
I know. If Taylor Swift starts a church, that's
Goodness
where everyone's
gracious.
going. I
Well, a
think
lot of
so.
people
Yeah.
say that she already has it. There's sort of like a cult following.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That she's got her own like belief system, like cult thing going on. I don't know. And I'm not super into it enough to know that or
Yeah.
to make any
Got no
definitive.
bad blood with her.
Oh my gosh.
So do we
We're gonna try to figure out how many of these I can work in.
yeah. Do you know her
Shake it
discography
off,
that
bro.
well?
What?
Do you know her discography that well?
Not as much as I.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure
claim
we've reached
to.
the extent of his knowledge. 2 songs.
So I will share like I'll be like I know Taylor Swift for like the students to like
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of be relatable for them and kind of like
Fake.
engage them like
You're being fake.
and they'll
You don't
like
know.
they'll be like all right top album like best song on and I'm just like just,
Hit the panic
they
button.
like yeah they call me on my bluff like every time.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
I'm a big fan of Taylor's version. I don't know what that
Oh
means.
my. That means that every song is going to be 10 plus minutes. That's what that means.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, dude!
goodness.
Every
Dude, she
time I'm
released an album that's like 2 hours like more than 2 hours
dude,
long.
every
dude.
time I'm in the car, Erica's
crazy.
my wife Erica. For those of you that don't know, my wife Erica, she's like, we have to listen to the Taylor's version because there's some beef with her and the last producer. or
Yeah.
something. And then I'm like, okay, how bad
Yeah.
can it be? 10. I'm not even kidding you. Like 11 minutes is one song.
It's like a Snyder cut.
I'm like, dude,
Wow.
Taylor, bless you, but man, I don't know that I
Yeah,
have
no, I
11
don't.
minutes to listen to one
I
song.
don't go that amount of time.
I
That's
don't
a
know,
lot.
man. We out here listening to like Maverick City and stuff. So
I don't know,
mean,
not
Firm
me.
Foundation full version's like 8 minutes.
That's true, but 8's not 11.
That's true.
You know what I
and
mean?
not about the nonsense that Taylor Swift's music might be as opposed to worship.
Yes.
So are we diving into this question now, or are we going around all the questions and kind of doing it? How
No,
you
let's
wanna
do it.
this?
Let's do it right now.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
right
do
now?
it
So-
right now.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll just close my laptop.
Where this kind of came from was the idea of looking at churches that have grown to the point where they have this kind of celebrity leadership. And so Hillsong was, I
Yep.
think, one of the more recent kind of perpetrators of doing church this way.
Sure.
Elevation, you've got Stephen Furtick. Village Church in Texas, you've got Matt Chandler, who's, are big. You've got all these churches, Joel Osteen, if you want to get into churches that
Oh my
I
gosh.
absolutely don't
Yeah.
align with or agree with in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But either way, it's the idea of a church that's formed around a celebrity person at the helm.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more of a big deal. And especially now with live streaming, with social media, with all those kinds of things available, someone in Modesto could choose to, and for however right or wrong I think this would be, that person could choose to engage with Elevation Church on a Sunday morning
Yeah.
rather than attending a local church.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because, they like Stephen Furtick and they gravitate towards his teaching, whatever.
Yeah.
And so with that kind of atmosphere out there, with Western church really kind of, I feel like wrestling on some level with this idea of having huge celebrity figures at the center of it. Is that a wise model for ministry and for churches? And what are the pitfalls with that? What are the ups and the downs? And off the top of my head, I'll give you some. Just looking at Hillsong and the controversy that's kind of happened in the Hillsong world, and in churches everywhere, but Hillsong was one of the biggest that's happened recently, is when you have ministry that's centered around this one person, and it's all about fame, and it's, all about being known and renowned.
Influence.
Yeah, being very influential. When that person deals with some kind of moral failing or some kind of...
As humans do.
As we are all prone to do.
Yeah.
I think you've set up the kingdom. You've set up that portion of the kingdom to live or die based on a figure.
Yeah, it's
that
built
is
on one
fallible.
pillar.
Right.
Yeah.
And I gotta believe that's an unwise kind of way to operate. One of the things I love about Shelter Cove, and it was one of the first things that I really truly appreciated when I first came here 6 years ago now, a little over 6 years ago. I super appreciate the way that, we hear from a lot of different people. We hear from Pastor Jeremy. We hear from Pastor Chad. We hear from Pastor Bob. We hear from
Pastor James.
Well, it seems weird to put
You'll miss
myself. It seems weird to put myself in that category just because of how awesome those guys are, and they're great communicators, and I'd be honored to think that I'd be mentioned in the same sentence as them. But all that to say, the fact that there's plurality in teaching, I think protects against this idea of the ministry being centered around a person. And so I think it's worthwhile looking at this idea of celebrity as pertains to the Christian world and asking ourselves, I don't know, is this
right?
Wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd love to hear what you guys are saying.
I
What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
Play the jingle.
Come
We
on.
don't got a jingle.
Roll credits.
Not yet. Hey,
I don't know if we need a jingle, but
could be cool.
and I'm like the one guy who would be pro jingle, but anyways, I think to sort of like, I don't know, I always find it helpful to engage in conversations like this and kind of like steel man, I've heard somebody say. So like you kind of like just present the best. If you disagree with something, argue with the best, strongest version of it. Don't argue with the version that's like if I was going against Christianity, don't go against the Christianity that's like the Crusades. Like, can you believe that the Crusades happened? Christianity is garbage. It's like, well, okay, you're taking like some of the worst. But anyways, you know what I mean. And so to kind of steelman it in a way, I suppose, like some of the, because you had mentioned like what are some of the pros and cons of it, and like I think we all agree that it's not a wise thing to do, but there are some advantages in that.
Yeah.
I think when you have like a very charismatic leader who is able to engage with people, like that is a benefit to the message. Like if the messenger is engaging, then the message is going to be communicated that much better to more people. Like, and having the ability to engage with people like in a digital space is increasing the accessibility to the gospel and to the word of God. And so there's definitely some ways that it is positive and that people probably would like to spin it. I'm not sure if anyone can think of any other examples just off the top of their heads about some other ways, but I recognize that. And oftentimes it is the charismatic and engaging leader that builds this celebrity kind of personality.
Right.
But yeah, it's just when you build something on someone's back, it's just always going to be brittle because humans are humans. Like the message in the church should be built on the Holy Spirit and on the Word of God, things that never change and that are much sturdier than putting it on our backs to carry and things like that. Those are just some of the thoughts off the top of my head.
That's good.
I think I agree with both of you and whatever and all that you're saying. I'm just in the spirit of wanting to play devil's advocate, maybe a little bit. Like if I'm putting myself in their shoes, though, they would say, I would imagine, excuse me, they would say, I would imagine that they are doing it so that people can, hear the word, or that they can come to have an experience and encounter with God. Right? They're doing it for the correct reasons.
Yeah.
Although it may not appear to them as though it's all on their back because they're seeing it from a different angle, right? They're seeing it from the, like, we're reaching so many people, and this is such a great thing. So part of me wonders, like, how they would view themselves almost,
And it is very effective with younger generations. Like, younger generations don't care what like institutions think so much as they care about what celebrities think.
Yeah.
And like part of that is because it's coming from like the relational space. Like younger generations care significantly more about relationships being like they want to know somebody,
Yeah.
and these parasocial relationships that are happening like digitally, like they can feel like they know they can feel like they know one of these pastors.
Yeah.
Because like, we live in an age where like everybody's vlogging and like everybody's like,
Right.
look at my life, like this stuff. You feel like you really know them, and so that helps the authority of the person, that celebrity,
Sure.
even though it's not really a relationship. It's like faking a relationship,
Mhm.
but that's who younger generations want to listen to, if that makes sense.
It does, and but I think that's interesting because for how in tune I think millennials and down,
Yeah.
not hierarchically, but from a descending order, right? Millennials, Gen Z,
Like
Gen
a
Alpha.
chronological order. Yeah.
Right. I think if you go millennial backwards, what you tend to find is that, I guess it'd be millennial forwards,
Yeah.
but what you would find is that generation, those generations are very in tune to what is false and what is fake and what is manufactured and what is production versus substance. To the point where you see studies now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there are studies all over the place that talk about the idea that there are young people, millennial and forward, that are just attending orthodox religious houses of worship, whether it be churches, whether it be whatever religion it is. They're seeking orthodoxy from this idea that the boomer generation, Gen X, those generations were so hyper-focused on marketing in a way that was manipulative, and at least seen to be manipulative, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And in a way that was very manufactured, that was best foot forward, that was produced. The younger generations are now hypersensitive to that. And so it's crazy to me. It seems strange to me that those generations are still seeking after this idea of the celebrity culture and are still in tune with, or would consider that to be authentic.
Right.
Because I see it as another.
That's a great point.
I see it as another fabricated thing, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Well, so I mean, my mind and my thoughts go to several different things, and I don't know that I have the answer for them. But one, my first question is was Jesus a celebrity?
Yeah, I was curious to make that shift to like, how did Jesus do ministry and like the prophets before him?
Because he was, I mean, he's still famous today.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and there are lots of worship songs even still that use that exact vernacular that we live to make his name famous, right? So then how would we then treat that? And then my other thought was, I was actually listening to a podcast by Carey Nieuwhof in his leadership podcast, and he was talking about actually how for a time that was true through like this weird COVID like era thing, people were looking for the smaller thing because everything felt so it was all fake news at the time, right? I mean, even now stuff is coming out about how much false information that we've been given through the media. And so now during that time, right? And during that time, people were looking for something authentic and real and true. But what we're seeing now is trend data is actually going back towards mega churches and back towards those things, which is really interesting. And this is a podcast he published probably, I want to say about a month ago.
Sure.
So I'm not sure. And with that said, I'm not sure where he's pulling that data from, but nonetheless, yeah.
I'd be interested to see how the demographic of that broke down. Like, I'd be interested to see age groups with that, and which age groups specifically are attracted to what form of church, what form of gathering, right? And
what form of gathering I think is a helpful way to frame
it. I think that's probably true. And the other portion to this whole thing is relationship. I think you touched on this a little bit, Nathaniel, the idea of relationship. Younger generations may be feeling that they have that even with a celebrity because of things like vlogging,
social media.
Things like social media, you know, how social media plays a role in it.
This guy's my pastor, but they've never met him. It's like, oh, I follow this guy and like I know all about their life. It's like, never met him. Like, but if they say something about you should vote like this, you should.
So let me ask you this question: do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts on?
Do you guys
think?
Used
it twice already, bro.
I know.
Let me have some.
I'm sorry, guys. It's just happening. What are your thoughts on the idea of can somebody call a pastor whom they've never met their pastor?
Ooh, that's good.
Is that right? Is that wise? Is that biblical? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think I think the title and authority of pastor goes beyond just like somebody who teaches. Because I think even when Paul writes, he specifically separates like pastors and teachers.
Yeah.
But I think it's more than that. So like I think you can call somebody who you hear, like if I'm watching a celebrity like Stephen Furtick, if I'm listening to Stephen Furtick,
Right.
and I could say like if I listen to him a lot, or like Craig Rochelle, like if I listen to him a lot, and I could be like, oh yeah, he's somebody I look up to. He's like somebody, but I think making the leap to he's my pastor is dangerous because a pastor is most closely imaged in the scripture as like a shepherd.
Yeah.
And a shepherd is with the sheep. A shepherd is, side by side,
There's
hands
proximity.
on. There's proximity, which I know is a word you like, Victor.
Mm.
And does more than just care. Like he cares for the sheep. He leads the sheep. He does all this stuff, and it's just so much more than just I'm going to teach you about the word of God. As important as that is, and as how valuable that is, I think it's just so much more. So I think it's dangerous to say that somebody who you don't have proximity with is your pastor, because then you're not looking for somebody to be that close pastoral relationship with you where they can see you, they can look you in the eyes, they can call you out, challenge you, encourage you, and that kind of thing.
I wonder though, because then the question is does a pastor have to know me to be my pastor? That's the question, right? I can know them, right? That's because that's just the setup here. I know Pastor Stephen, right? I know of him.
Mm-hmm.
He preaches the word of God, and that's arguable for some people.
That's why I quickly tried to find somebody else.
Yeah.
All I remembered was
Craig
Joel
Rochelle.
Osteen from what you
Craig
said,
Rochelle.
and
Quick,
Stephen Furtick. And I
somebody
was like, I
different.
gotta find somebody who's like,
He preaches out of the Bible.
yeah. I
Well,
just said Rick Warren.
And that's the thing is that a lot of the tangent. Hold on to what you're going for, but that's an interesting thing as well. Is that most of the guys that I could name as celebrity pastors, I would not align theologically with.
Yeah.
For example, people like Mike Todd, Tim Ross, Joel Osteen.
Woo. He's naming names, folks.
Yeah, like a lot of these guys, like I just can't align.
Yeah.
They may have
theologically
they may have some solid messages about some stuff,
Right.
but
Sure.
even crooked, crooked.
Well,
sticks
let's call
across
it
straight
what it
lines
is.
sometimes,
Joel
right?
Osteen, right? Joel
Yeah.
Osteen, one of the more famous pastors in the world right now, I would
Right.
have to say. And his theology on giving, generosity, and prosperity is offensive to the gospel.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I'll call it what it is right there.
Yeah.
And so most of the guys that I could name on a celebrity basis, I would not agree with
Sure.
theologically at all. So then you start to get into the kind of intentions game. Like, what are their intentions? Like, what are they?
Yeah.
Is there malice in their intentions,
Right.
or are their intentions genuinely for good and to see people thrive and become closer to Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't know their intentions, right? I can't know the condition of their heart. So when you say like, is it enough for somebody to know a pastor? I don't know that I can know Stephen Furtick just from watching his videos on YouTube.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas I can know Pastor Jeremy, from seeing him, from being around him, from proximity, I know for a fact that his heart is pure. He is a one of the best people I know.
Yeah.
Like, I can know that from having that proximity with him. So I don't know. I don't know that I could say that you could know somebody just from watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, and then the second one, is where is that line? How deeply do I have to know somebody to say I know them, right? Like, and that we can get into that whole thing, but
I would tend to agree with, I think, Nathaniel, you said it well. I think that there's a difference between a teacher and a pastor.
Yeah.
I think someone can teach well, and that can happen through a YouTube video. That can happen through, I mean, we see that in universities all over the country, right? There's, people learning remotely, all that kind of stuff. I think you can be taught from afar. I don't think, barring something like Zoom where there's a phone call, there's an interactive nature. I really don't think that I could say that you could be pastored by somebody at a church that you've never physically attended or do not physically attend. And I would say that is not the ideal pastoral relationship.
Man.
Yeah.
This was a great topic.
I'm just saying.
Nice
No,
work,
dude, this was
James.
this was a
I
good.
came in with 2 questions. You asked for 3. I only needed 1.
No, that's
Yeah.
and that's how this is gonna go, man. So, all right, man. The next question. Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll go, and we can wrap with yours if you feel really good about yours.
No, you go. Because what'll happen is
Bet.
we'll take yours, and then we'll pause for another segment, which we'll introduce in a second, and then we'll hit the last one at the end.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
My 3, kind of prompted from like what's going on right now in the world, and I think your prompt to us kind of was like, what's going on in the world? How does it affect the church?
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
So naturally, I thought about, and I'll give you the current stuff that's going on to influence these questions, but there's like
Okay.
a deeper church question.
Okay.
So naturally, I thought of Drake and Kendrick and their beef, and so
Okay.
I'll tell you now. I have no idea what that is.
and it's not going to make you get closer to Jesus if you find out. So
Okay.
it's not really important for you to do. It'll take you far away from Jesus. Actually,
I've heard
But-
of Drake, I think.
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate part.
Okay.
Yeah, Drake is. Okay, anyways,
Yeah.
and so just the idea. So that prompted me. So thinking about that.
Yeah.
This is a pop culture moment,
All right.
and
here
so
for
the
it.
thought is like, I think the more helpful, productive conversation could be around like how Christians can respond to other people online, and like the idea of like beefing in the comments and like
Oh,
the
the
idea
comment
of, like,
Christians.
all that kind of stuff, like
Yes.
comment Christians, yeah. And so
Okay.
like how should Christians, or even just how do Christians have productive conversations, either online or in person with people they disagree with? We can go a couple ways like that.
Okay.
I was thinking about church in the church VR church.
Oh my
Church in the
gosh.
metaverse. I saw a video
Yeah.
come through my feed on Instagram, which
Yeah.
I'm rarely on, so like it was kind of a interesting find. And
Yep.
it was or no, you had sent it to me, or somebody had sent it to me.
I
think.
sent it to you.
Yeah,
I sent
it
it to
was.
both of you because I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
No, I saw it.
Oh no, you're talking about the Fortnite communion one.
Yes.
Okay, there's Fortnite communion that happened.
Oh, and then the other one that you
but
were.
the other one I was thinking of was like Saddleback
Yes,
Church.
yes. You
Had
showed me
like
this
a
one.
VR chat service, so that's like in the VR chat room that they're in. Which, if you don't know, you can put on VR, headset,
Virtual
and then
reality.
you're now
Yeah.
like a character in a room, like with other people, and you're all engaging and stuff like that.
You saw it too, didn't
And
you?
so-
that video. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was they were playing
So
like they were
disappointed.
playing an actual
Yeah.
worship service on the screen,
Yes.
but everybody was there like in their like fursonas, like they were all like a bunch of furries. There's like Naruto was there, and like
Let me pause. What he means is, for those of you that have no idea, people were
Yeah.
like look at the appearance of like a cat or a dog
Yeah.
or a fox or a wolf or something. That's
oh
what he
man,
means.
but
by,
if I'm the
yeah.
person to introduce you to furries, I'm so sorry because that's
Just for the listener out there that may not know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
it's it's expensive.
We live in a weird world.
So can real biblical discipleship happen online? So I got 2 questions about online.
Okay.
Because I just love talking about that.
Okay.
And my third one is Pride Month. So how can Christians
Ooh.
have great conversations about LGBTQ plus issues?
Wow. Yeah, these are all very deep
Heavy hitters, bro.
I just gotta say, man.
You ask for questions, I give you questions.
Yeah.
Let me kind of go first here a little bit. I'd say that I feel comfortable giving this teaser to anyone listening that
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2024, we will, as a church, be addressing the idea of sexual identity, gender identity, sexuality, all that kind of situation. We'll be addressing that as a whole church together later on this year.
Yeah.
In pretty close after the summer, actually. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would say, my opinion would be for where to go with those questions. I would say let's leave the pride conversation, identity, all that kind of thing. Let's do that as a church family
Yeah.
on the weekend.
Fair.
And then for topics conversation, I could talk for hours on the idea of VR church. And the idea of digital discipleship online. So my vote would be for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways adjacent to kind of what you were talking about a little bit,
Yeah.
because the existence of a VR, existence of a church in virtual reality means that is there a pastor? So it's like kind of adjacent.
Yeah, let's do that.
Different in a way.
Honestly, because I was thinking about it. I mean, I was trying to. My thoughts went 2 places. One, what's going to be most relevant for you guys watching and listening to this, but also, I think that it would be important to have this conversation because this is where the world is going. Like this is the kind of the future-esque of the church in some ways. I mean, obviously it exists. So I think.
Yeah, it's
let's-
definitely the future of culture. Like I think
Yes.
that is.
Thank you
would be silly not to
Yes.
admit that.
Yeah. Let's go with the VR one because that is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I'll even chip in and I guess start kind of with this whole thing, like the video that I sent you, and we're talking about two separate videos that we had seen. I had sent one to
Which
both
is funny in a way because what are your thoughts initially came from our Instagram group chat that the three of us have,
Yes.
where you would send stuff to us and just ask, what are your thoughts?
That's
So
deep cuts.
That's like the real inspiration behind
so
the name.
Thank you for that. Yeah, like I would just be on Instagram and we would find these
Nonsense,
deep, like nonsense
always.
theology videos, and I would send it to these two, and I'd be like, what are your thoughts? Like what do you guys think about this? And it was usually some like super heretical, like deep thing. Anyway,
yeah, some
we're here.
pastors like, can you believe the fig tree that Jesus cursed meant this?
Yeah,
You're like, they didn't mean that.
It didn't.
Wait, it's not that deep, bro.
So VR Church. Let's talk about it. The first video that I sent to him was like a bunch of people playing in, what was it?
It was Fortnite.
In Fortnite, it's a video game. And these guys were in Fortnite having communion. I don't even know how to explain that, but it was like all digital. So it was like a digital piece of bread that they were breaking amongst the different players in the game.
There's food and drink items to heal you and to give you shield, all that kind of stuff. So like there's food and drink stuff in the game.
And it just hit me so sideways. I don't know why.
Well, let me tell you, it's because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's because it's crazy.
So once again to Steelman, they were reading scripture. Like they were in a party chat. There's 4 of them. They're all around. They were reading scripture, like reading through the passage, and that's just about as far as the Steelman goes. Take it down.
Here is where I would draw the line. If they walked away from that interaction online, they went about their daily lives, and that was the church experience that they had that week. That's insane. That's ridiculous. They did not attend church. That was not church. I think that this is a dangerous thing that we're facing a little bit as a culture, and something that we prioritize here at Shelter Cove is community.
Yeah.
The community nature of church. And really the question is, can community happen in a church context? Can it happen online?
Yes.
I would say that community can happen online, and it can be a part of your church experience. For example, if there was a small group that happened, or a Cove group, right, that happened over Zoom, and I think we may have a Zoom Cove group, I would say, great. Like, if that's how you choose to meet, if that's the best way to do it because your kids have crazy schedules and you can't get over to someone's house that week, like, and you're doing that online, that's fine. Community like that can absolutely happen online. I would say when it comes to the sacraments of church, and I use sacraments lightly, it's a Catholic term. I don't mean that these are necessarily, what they mean in the Catholic Church. But for the things that happen at church together as a church family, things like communion, things like baptisms, right? Things that are...
Thinking about digital baptism, that'd be so funny.
Oh, and I'll tell you a story here in a second.
Yeah.
But things like that, I really don't think those can be replicated well online. And out of a necessity...
And maybe nor should they.
Well, that's really what I'm going after, I think. Because can they? Sure. Like we saw it in that video. These guys were playing Fortnite, and they were genuinely leading each other through communion.
Yeah.
Now, I remember a time during COVID where we weren't meeting for a little while. It was a short span of time, but there was a span of time. And we talked about the idea of how to do communion. How could we lead people through how to do communion with their family at home during a time where we couldn't meet together? I think that there's allowances for things like that. I think we can say that there's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
However, I am almost confident, I'm almost 100% confident that these people on Fortnite would call that their church experience, and that's it.
Sure.
That is their church experience on a weekly basis. So the thing about baptism, Victor and I had the opportunity to interact with some people, and that's as much detail as I think I'll give on that.
Fair.
But a group of people who are advocates in the church world for digital discipleship and how to do digital church and things like that.
VR church
specifically. And we were sat in a room of people, kind of like a think tank situation. And they were talking about, there was one guy presenting who talked about how he attends church. Digital church is so important because he attends church for 6 months of the year from the stands of a baseball pavilion because his kids play travel ball. And so he used this verbiage. He attends church for 6 months of the year on his phone. And I'm listening to it, and I cannot get that right in my... How is the community aspect
How is it being
just
accomplished?
talked right. We just talked about the value of seeing someone face to face and being
them.
with somebody and knowing them. Like how can that really happen like that? And I don't think it can. I'm of the opinion that you really can't replicate a physical church community, the benefit of the local church. I don't think you can replicate it online or in the VR space. And so then in this conversation that we were having with these people, they went down the road of saying digital baptisms. Like who has done distanced baptisms, like baptisms where the person has not been at your church. And I'm like, my brain's slipping into another dimension. I'm like, baptism?
Twilight Zone stuff going on.
Communion I can get to.
Yes.
I don't think it's ideal that you do it that way, but in a time where COVID exists, there's a global pandemic and we're all...
You get the elements to people. They're in their home with their family.
We can figure that out.
That could be a beautiful thing.
Right.
Yes. What I draw the line with is baptisms.
A public demonstration of you identifying with Christ. That's what he's done.
And there are churches saying that they'll send a pastor out to baptize somebody in their home, in their bathtub.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that just seems so much not the point. Like that seems so much adverse to what it should be. And so I think I think churches are, and this is kind of like the slippery slope analogy, right? Like you justify one thing, it's like sin, right? You justify a small sin, then you're able to justify more. And over time, you've boiled the frog in the water and, you didn't realize it. I think churches have to be so careful with this idea of how much we choose to conduct online and from afar. I get that COVID was a necessity moment for that, but man, we got to be careful that we're not boiling the frog with how much we're allowing things that are best done together happening digitally. So that's I'll get off the soapbox. I'll let you guys chat.
No, dude, I agree with that. I think I want to kind of take it from the jumping off point of being known. Like, how can anybody know you?
Yeah.
Even what you were saying too, Nathaniel, like there are people in this virtual reality space that are being represented by cat costumes, skins is what sometimes what they call them, avatars, right? Wolf, fox, like how there's a level of anonymity that people can still hide behind in these spaces.
That's good.
That makes it really, really hard to be known. Like, am I knowing this cat person with the username of, I don't know, like a furry kitty?
Sure.
33, like, you know what I mean? I'm just making that up. I'm sure that exists
That's
out there.
my
If you're watching this, furry kitty 33, then
that's Robert's gamer tag.
He's
not
well,
here
because that's interesting. I do think that can happen physically as well, though.
Oh, sure.
I do think that you can walk into this church building and still have your mask on and your guard up.
Sure.
I think it's a lot more difficult to do.
Figurative mask.
Yeah.
But in the online space, it's more blatant.
Totally.
It's like it's very apparent that you're not being like true to your person, right? In that kind of a space, and it's easier to fabricate false identity in that space, I think.
I would agree with that entirely. I think that. So here's a story that I'll always tell in relation to this is that when I first got engaged to Alyssa, my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. That's when we just got engaged, you know. That's with the timeline.
That's how that works?
I got you.
Yeah. Let me just explain
write
that.
down.
But I was back in the UK at the time. I proposed over here in the US, went back to the UK, started the visa process, all that kind of stuff. And I got very...
Just a thrilling process, I've heard.
Oh, it's glorious. I'll walk you through it one day when you want to watch some paint dry.
Want to have 15 years?
Yeah, for real. But I was going through that process, and I just got super depressed. I got down. Like I've never been so low in my life into depression, and I was having a really rough time. One of the things that got me through that time was I was playing online video games. I would go to the supermarket that I worked at, bunch of shifts, and then get home 10 o'clock at night, log on, and there's a guy from Scotland who I doubt would ever listen to this podcast. But
Furry Kitty 33.
No.
Okay.
his name is his gamer tag was the Mole.
Okay.
And
the Mole, like MOLE?
Yeah. So
goes hard.
We just called him Mole.
That goes hard, dude.
And and so there was a group of us that played, but
stuff.
Mole was the guy that would always he was the guy that was always online. And I tell you what, at that time, that was one of the closest friendships that I had in my life was with this guy called Mole. I know his name. I know his real name.
Sure.
And I knew his real name then. But that was a relationship that got me through the time that I was in and was really beneficial to me in that time. However, there's so much about Mole that as much as I bared my heart to that guy and he cared for me, I truly believe that he was a great friend to me during that time, and I knew certain things about him. There's so much that I still couldn't know because I had never been in the same room as the guy.
Yeah.
And so you can bare your heart with someone and really not ever understand their true intentions, and it's so much easier to do that online than it is to do it in person.
Well, I think it's just because of the anonymity thing, right? Like there's a level of like disconnect that I'm allowed to have from my problems, my whatever that I carry, that it's easier to dump those out behind a username that doesn't relate to me, like a personal identity, right? Like
you
know what I mean?
Disconnect from that moniker.
Yes.
Like you could drop that moniker and no one need ever understand it was you.
Right. Yeah. And so there's a level of like freedom that comes with that, but scary freedom, I would say, right? Like it's kind of scary to have that much power to be anonymous, right?
Totally.
So, right on, dude. What a topic, bro. That was great.
That's a good one. You could do hours on that.
Seriously,
you could do another 25 minutes alone on just the idea of how that anonymity makes online places, VR spaces, which by the way, parents, pro tip, if you let your kids wear VR headsets at a young age.
Just don't. Wait, what?
A, consider if that's wise. That's up to you.
Yep.
But B, make sure that you're monitoring on your phone what they're seeing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that is so easy to put the headset on and you don't know what they're looking at.
Yes.
There's an app on your phone for every VR headset that exists. There's an app on your phone where you can know what they're looking at.
Yep.
So a little safety tip for you.
Yeah.
But you could go down a whole rabbit trail.
Yeah, man. What a great topic. So listen, we have 2 more things before we end. What I want to do is, this is a new thing that I would like to add into this podcast called Behind the Veil. Essentially what this is I would love to talk about what is happening right now in the church that we're doing. Because a lot of people, even I was just talking to a couple of our ministry department heads, Sean, who runs our HR and events team. I was talking to Shannon Lambeth, who runs our kids ministry. And they were both talking to us about how like their admins came on staff with us and made the comment of like, I thought you guys just waited for the weekend to happen. And then followed by an apology saying like, I didn't realize that you guys work so hard through the week. And so this segment, Behind the Veil, is an opportunity for us as ministry leaders. And when we get other people, like I said, Bjorn was invited to be here today, but he couldn't be, an opportunity for us to share like what's happening right now in the culture of our church, to bring people who just attend into what really happens. So we talked about it earlier, we alluded to it, and that would be kids camp.
Kids camp.
Kids camp.
Yeah, how we make this super fun. I was like, so we have a meeting once a week. And at this meeting, Sean brings the minutes. Kids camp is a really cool thing because I think it's the event at our church that brings the most multidisciplinary like staff involved, like as the most varied staff involved in it, right? Because you're thinking about Christmas, like Victor and James and Pastor Jeremy are kind of, you guys are the big heavyweights carrying that project through, and but kids camp is like, it's a junior high and a special needs and a kids and a next gen and events and production and communicate. Like it's like literally everybody has their hands in this thing.
All hands on deck.
In that way, it's pretty neat. Like I know I've been really just kind of blessed just to be able to like look around the table at these meetings and just be like, oh, like everybody's here. It's like,
dude, tell everybody
Smash
what
Brothers,
your
right?
role is in kids camp this year. If everybody's involved, what's your role?
Just being around.
Oh, come on, just hanging around. Beetlejuice.
What are you doing, man? Just hanging around.
Just hanging around.
I am a character in the production, and
Heck yeah.
I am, which I'm very excited about.
And your name is?
Scuba Joe.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Nickname
We have the
Tin
very
Can.
own Scuba Joe.
Insert applause effect.
Yeah.
Would you like to do like
we can put one in.
do you want to do like a little sneak peek? Like if they listen before kids camp, they're like, oh, I heard about this on the podcast.
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Yeah, so we're really excited this year. I mean, we've kind of been teasing the kind of under the sea theme. How much have we kind of given that out to people? Because we're going to be...
Well, the graphic is the bottom of the ocean.
It is the bottom of the ocean, so hopefully they've
if you
picked that
haven't
up.
picked up on that.
I hope they got that.
Yeah.
So we're doing... I'll just give broad stroke. We're doing the story of Jonah, so we're really excited about that. And we're kind of... and I'll give this away too. This is like a little preview. Don't tell your kids. Like this is don't have your kids listen to this part. In a funny way, not in like we're gonna get deep kind of way, but we are going
a lot of disclaimers happening.
We're gonna have like a big Toy Story moment where I think I'm like a real scuba diver, and I realize that I'm a toy. In an aquarium, and all the kids are the like people who are like watching us in the aquarium.
No way.
And it's like really
Did
funny.
you not know that?
I
didn't know that.
It's day one out the gate. It's really
It's so good.
That happens day one?
Day one, I run into the wall
of the aquarium, yeah.
Yeah, and I realize I'm a toy, and I lose my mind. So it's like I'm really
Wow.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be good.
I'm not looking forward to being Jonah, the crybaby prophet, but
yeah, dude.
It's a great story about what God did in amongst the people.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
that's kids camp, and then I'm also doing Club 5-6, which is like our 5th and 6th grade.
Yes. True.
Game and craft and event manager. So I'm gonna be playing a bunch of games where they're hitting each other with pool noodles.
Woo woo.
Can't wait.
So my role this year, and I guess almost every year except for one, and I'll tell you the story, but I'm going to be helping out with the production this year. So all of the stuff that's happening, dude, I'm so excited. Like, we have been sitting in, like, read-throughs of the script and, like, coming up with really creative elements and, like, what if we did this effect here, or what about this sound effect right here? It's going to be super exciting. It wasn't always this way that I helped out in production. It's this way for the past 2 years because the first year that I helped, I ran, like, a kids group, and I got COVID for the first time.
And you decided never again?
And I decided...
Kids camp.
Yes, and I decided never again. And the only reason, and not because I don't like the kids, but because it kept me from leading worship for like almost a whole month, because it just took me so long. The first time I got COVID, right? So it took me a long time to like recoup and come back from that. But nonetheless, I was like, you know what? I don't know that I can do that again, but I still would love to be involved in kids camp, and this is the niche that I found for myself. So... Dude, I really wanted to be this year. It was going to be really fun, but we don't have a production manager still, and so I just didn't feel good about leaving my production team in the back without having somebody there to oversee and speak into that. So, yeah, James, what's your role? Kids camp.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
2 hours ago in the meeting.
I know. We were in a meeting literally 2 hours before recording.
Did you bring your to-do
this.
list? Because that would be hilarious.
Oh, the to-do list is long. The to-do list is long. Most of my work for Kids Camp kind of comes in the prep, and honestly, this has been a year where I have actively kind of not taken on a ton of tasks for myself as much as just tried to provide some oversight to the team that does just such an incredible job. So Shella is my admin here at the church, and she does an incredible job just project managing, kind of looking after things.
Dude, even when I walked in, she was in the print room cutting stuff.
Yeah, for Kids Camp.
Yeah. Like the bulletins or
she does
whatever.
an awesome job with that
She's
stuff.
Crazy,
and
bro.
taking
She's
care
awesome.
of stuff. Like, she does a great job with that. Zach, our graphic designer, has done an incredible job with graphics this year. They look really, really sharp, really good. They're doing a killer job. Jacob's putting videos together for Kids Camp. I know he shot a video with you, I think, Nathaniel, to do with part of the production part of that story, which came out great. He showed me what that looked like. And
what?
Yeah, not Final Cut, no. The rough. You showed me, I think, yeah. It looked great. And so, totally. So anyway, all that to say, just kind of really letting the team just cook. They've been cooking. And so my role comes to do with communication, making sure that people know about Kids Camp, which arguably was somewhat successful.
Yeah.
Because we had to close registrations we hit capacity, which
first time ever,
God,
baby.
Like, that is such a cool thing. And then
just the right amount of kids where if they all turn against us, we just about have it taken care of. But if we took on any more kids, we're outnumbered.
Yeah, outnumbered.
Yeah.
Collective
we would be drowning, huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, nice. That was good.
Okay,
Good reference.
all right,
I understood that reference.
All right.
Yeah, and then on Kids Camp itself, I'll just kind of be around. I'll be helping capture some cool stuff to be able to show the church what happened for those that weren't a part of it, just to show the church kind of what took place and just provide some kind of
moral support.
Yeah, moral support. Want to be there for the team. Pastoral support. If there's anybody that needs somebody to chat to, I'll be there for that.
Dude, that kind of like my brother, he loaned me his drone a super long time ago. That might be a cool opportunity to fly that around.
For sure, man.
Yeah, right?
Well, actually, let me shout someone out. Elijah is somebody who attends here at the church, and he is a great guy, and he has just gotten his drone license to be able to fly drones. And so he actually is volunteering some of his time just to come and fly a drone for
cool.
kids camp, so we can get some cool aerial footage. So
What?
shout out to Elijah.
Hey,
Wow,
Elijah,
thanks,
dude,
Elijah.
you're the man. Okay,
My favorite prophet.
right? All right, so we have the one. Hey, do it for the gram. All right, we have one last. It's my turn to go now, and then
Yep,
this
so
is where
we'll pick.
this is where we will end it here. Okay.
Go for it,
So
bro.
the first one is we are living in a time right now with the most generational diversity that the church has ever seen. How is that affecting how we do ministry today?
Yeah, James, is this right? I was telling Victor this, but I tell him a lot of stuff I don't think is right. Is it true that like there's the most generations alive now than have ever been?
Yeah.
Don't you have like
I
are
think
any
you've got
from the silent generation, like boomers,
Boomer?
Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha?
what was the pre-war one, the silent one, right?
Silent one, yeah.
I think that you still have some of that generation. I think that generation is still classified as being around. You still have some
Yeah.
of the silent generation.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you've got
Crazy. So what does that make? Like 5 or 6 or something like that? Generation?
silent boomer, X, millennial, Z,
Alpha.
alpha.
6.
Yeah, 6.
It's crazy.
That's nuts.
Well, and that comes with like medical advances, like
We're just living too long.
yeah.
No, I'm definitely really. It's Taco Bell.
Oh
Taco
my
Bell,
gosh.
get me.
Yeah, that what is it? The ice cream, the Baja Blast ice cream.
Baja Blast
Right.
Colada.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's my first question. The second one is
Well, there was a question that went along with that.
oh,
right?
I'm sorry. How does this affect approach to ministry? Is that?
Oh, I can't remember if you said that part. But yeah, how does
Oh, I did.
the generational diversity.
Yeah, how does that affect that? So the second one is how does presidential elections affect my church? Because we have the presidential elections coming up this November, and so that means lots of different reservations for lots of people that attend church, how that affects their view of how they might be generous with their finances and economy and how that it relates with all that. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the last one is with the introduction of AI, artificial intelligence, what can you imagine could happen to the landscape of church? And so just background into that one too. Apple, just as a company, we're coming out of their Worldwide Developers Conference, where they just announced, rather. I mean, AI's been around for long enough at this point, but they just announced something that they're calling Apple Intelligence, and so that just is what spurred that. So, anyway, generational diversity, presidential elections, or AI. What are y'all feeling?
I feel like I don't want to talk about an election, but I could. I'd be happy to.
Well,
Well,
I guess
think some of the crossover with the election stuff kind of it crosses over a little bit into your question about dealing with things online and
Yeah.
tackling things. I think that's
Right.
where that will go
sure.
if we end up doing that one. I'd be happy with the election one. Honestly, I'd be happy with either of those. I think AI is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
What was your first one? Generations?
Generational diversity in the church and how it affects ministry today.
I think that one's interesting. That one.
I
would
like
be
that
my
one
pick.
too.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
Winner.
So-
Let's go.
So the precursor for this is as a worship pastor, and the worship pastors in general for the Big C Church, I would imagine, are probably like shaking in their boots a little bit because now we have to think about like a genre difference between 6 different generations of people attending a service,
Yeah.
and that is a lot of pressure to do that. Like I know some pastors that they include a hymn, at least one in every single service. They include a 90s to early 2000s worship song.
Oh, the
They-
golden era.
Right? I know, the good
So
old
many good songs.
Michael W.
Old
Smith.
Hill
and-
song stuff.
on.
Oh my goodness.
and then they include one from like some of the more K-Levy stuff that's happening now. And then they also include like some of the youth like stuff. So we're talking about Elevation Rhythm, Hillsong
Yeah.
Young and Free, but all of those are happening and coexisting in a single service in one worship set.
Wow.
Which my thoughts exactly. I'm like, wow, what in the world? But that's just my context as a worship pastor.
the drummer just is like lost. Like
I
it's
know,
a completely
right?
different thing every time.
Right?
Well, he can take a break for some of those categories.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to do
exactly.
it either.
Yeah, for real. But that's just how it's affecting me in a worship context. But I would be very interested to know how it affects you as a communications pastor, how you're communicating to all these different types of people, but also for you, what that means for youth ministry. Because like youth, sure, you're dealing with mostly Gen Z and Gen Alpha.
Yeah, Gen Alpha right now.
But you're also having to deal with the parents as well, who
Right.
come from different generations, and so like learning how to bridge the communication gap between how do I communicate and deal with parents who are trying to parent kids that are not
Yeah.
in there.
And I rely really heavily on older generations to
Yeah.
disciple people not from the same generation as them, which
Yeah.
is a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah. James, I would be very interested to hear you go first on this
Yeah.
topic.
Sure. Well, so multi-generations in churches, I think it's fascinating. I think church is one of the only places where you can have a 3-year-old and a 93-year-old that are together and unified in learning together, being together, just that sense of togetherness.
Sure.
Doesn't happen often outside of just a family context, right? When you go to see grandma or great-grandma
Thanksgiving
or
dinner, baby.
right. And
Yep.
so I think church is the one place where on a weekly basis in society, it's the one place where you have
You're brushing up
generations.
shoulders with other generations.
Right.
Yeah.
You're existing alongside other generations. And I think
Yeah.
I think it can be a really sweet thing about church. I really love that about church. Like we're all learning the same thing. We're together. Like we're learning about the same things just on different maybe levels and layers. And so I really love that about church. How does it affect the way that we do church? I would love to see a church environment. And I think we're driving at that here at Shelter Cove in a few different ways.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a church environment where the older generation is praying for and mentoring the younger generation, and the younger generation is actively honoring and seeking that from the older generation.
Yeah.
I would love to see this kind of cross-honoring generational thing. And so the things that I love, for example, like our seniors ministry, SIA, they meet upstairs in our event centers
Shout out to SIA.
on
Come
Tuesday
on now.
morning at 9:30 a.m. I love them up there so much. They have so much fun on a Tuesday morning. They study the Bible together. It's a really great thing.
Dude, their potlucks are incredible. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their potlucks are second to none.
Yes.
Yeah, you throw a potluck like that with my generation, you get a bunch of top ramen and a
Taco
bunch
Bell.
of pizza rolls, which I would be jamming
And
with, but
Taco Bell.
it's different.
And Taco
yeah,
Bell.
and Taco Bell.
The big cheese it.
But yeah, one of the things that I've loved that they have done in recent years is they just spend time in prayer for, like, we have a team that goes to Mexico, high school team that goes to Mexico every March, right?
Yeah.
And SIA will spend some time in prayer for the young people who are on that trip.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's great, having the older generation that's praying for and actively kind of a part of their lives in that way. I just think is a cool thing. So any excuse that we can get to cross-pollinate and cross-mingle, I think is a good thing. Now, do I think that having separate kind of areas for people who are in similar stages of life, different groups available for people who are in different stages of life, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the tension.
I think that's a great thing. Like, there's discipleship that happens when you're going through stuff together. Things like junior hires, being with junior hires, or experiencing the same thing together. High schoolers doing that. Having groups that have young marrieds with kids. We have women's ministry that thrives here. Having women that are together and unified in what they're dealing with and struggling with. Men's ministry do that. Having all those, I think, is important and necessary. But also having a culture of being able to cross over those generational demographic lines in order to intermingle. And I think that starts with relationships. And I know of like several really cool mentorship relationships in the church currently where you've got someone who is older mentoring somebody who is younger. And they're both are benefiting like from that. So when you talk about multi-generational, I'm all in, all for it. I just wonder, how we can just do that more. And I wonder what the church's responsibility is that to do versus like just each of us taking that in ourselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to go up to our SIA group and I'm going to find somebody
who wants to mentor this guy.
Yeah,
right?
like who can
problems.
I sit with? Who can I engage with? Who can I connect with? And I think it's probably a little bit of both. There's a personal level, but also like how can we do that together as a church family?
So I'm curious though too. I mean, like, what does it do for your communications though? Like, because obviously, like
that was the question, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But that's
sorry.
no,
thanks for
it's okay,
nothing, James.
Yeah,
I
thanks
know.
for a lot.
I completely
no,
do
but it
wrong.
was
Strike
still
the
no.
rest from the
What you were
record.
sharing was absolutely gold, man. Like so good. But
Yeah.
but I do want to hit on this too because it's an interesting thing to think about, like how the different generations communicate. For example, I got to help you with our announcement section in service the other day.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, for baptisms, we were talking about baptisms that are coming up on the 22nd, by the way. It's a shameless plug.
Yep.
And then we
And
also
23rd.
Yeah, and 23rd. That's true. Thank you.
No, just Saturday.
Yeah.
And next baptism, we'll go to your house. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Pastor James will come out. We talked about, hey, you can register via the app.
Mm-hmm.
You can scan the QR code, or you can fill out the paper.
Yep.
Right? The card. And so there's so many different ways for different people. So what does that do, like, on the back end when you're thinking about, for example, like kids camp we were talking about for Behind the Veil section, right? When you're talking about communicating kids camp and talking about multi-generational serving, what does that look like when you have to tap all of those different, like, venues?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it more complicated for sure. Like, it makes it, like you say, there's an inclusivity that you have to consider.
Sure.
You have to be okay with catering to people who are at different stages in how they respond.
Yeah.
So, for example, I got to think through who could potentially respond to what we're communicating as a church.
Yeah.
Baptisms is a great example. Who could potentially respond to that? Well, kids who understand and accept the gospel and,
Right.
Understand baptism, like, it could apply to kids, right?
Yeah.
So parents need to be able to easily navigate this.
Sure.
That means I got to consider in our church kind of registration system, like, I need to make sure that is easy for a parent to go in and register their child for baptisms. We need to make sure that there's a resource, which I actually just shot a video with Bjorn, just directed at kids to help them understand baptism a little more. Yeah.
Just before this.
So I got to make sure kids understand baptism and,
Yeah.
the parent can understand how to communicate that with their kid.
Mm-hmm.
So then I got to, it could potentially be an older person that wants to
Yeah.
sign up for baptisms. Well, there are some older people that are really, really great with technology and they love it and they've embraced it and they're really good with it. Others are a little less confident, and that's
Sure.
okay, but I need to make sure that there's an option for them to be able to connect with this well. And so it is about that inclusivity, making sure there's something available for everybody, and I hope we're doing that well.
Well, dude, I want to shout you out, man, because and the reason why I asked you that question was kind of so that you could dispel a lot of, like, it's not just as easy as, like, let's just put something together. A lot of thought goes into how to communicate that, and a lot of very intentional thought about being accessible that goes into a lot of the stuff that we do here. So I just wanted you to talk through that so that people know, like, man, when we're thinking about doing things, like, we're thinking about you. We're thinking about your kids. We're thinking about how the best way to get you connected to the church would be. So that you can benefit, you can hear the message of Jesus, you can find hope and love in Him.
Dude, I appreciate that. The bottom line is that everybody has a next step to take with their walk with Jesus.
Yeah.
No one is at a point where they have run out of next steps. Like, I
Sure.
believe everybody from our youngest kid to our oldest senior, I think that everybody has a next step to take in their walk with Jesus. And so
Right.
as a church, what we're trying to do is to help you take that next step.
Yeah.
As a communications team, what we're trying to do is to make that next step as easy for you as possible.
Yeah.
And it
You
does.
say team, it's just you though.
No, it's,
No, it's not.
Communications guy.
It's not.
It's-
You've
no,
got
it's not,
Shella, Zach, Jacob,
that's
Chance,
true.
Grace.
Yeah.
Like,
He needs a lot of help.
totally. Yes, professional help.
Yeah.
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 Still working on that.
No, we got
Yeah,
a team,
right.
and honestly, they do the lion's share of the work. I'm
killer,
just
dude.
honored and blessed to provide oversight and
You got a
to
killer
help.
team.
You just
I
have
really
the
do.
face that looks best on the stage.
Ah,
No, I got a face for podcasts.
bazinga. Natty, talk to me about what general.
Gonna have to recover from.
Gosh, I
your
keep saying
statement.
general. I'm looking at my iPad because I have it written down, and it says and then it starts. Anyway, I'm getting confused. Generational diversity.
This is Jenner, like Kylie Jenner.
No. Like, see,
Oh yeah, you start losing it after Jenner.
that's what I'm saying. I was
Yeah.
like, general, right? General diversity. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
Generational. What does that look like for you? Especially, I think. I mean, you're kind of in an interesting spot because, like, you get junior hires, you see them for 3 grades, 3-4 grades, and then they're off to the next thing, and then you have to deal with a whole nother cultural, like, onset of kids and things that they're dealing with. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, my job is very interesting because in some ways the people I'm interacting with, like the students I interact with, like they're not ever a different age bracket than, like James has to communicate to 6 different generations. I always have one every time. I have
Sure.
one, and I have like they're all at the same place. Maybe they're at different places developmentally, but like for the most part, they're all in the same place, and so, like,
Sure.
they all. So it's interesting in that way. But like I said, I definitely rely on the different generations providing their wisdom and insight and mentorship into their lives,
Yeah.
which is just super, super interesting. And then, yeah, the parents and the grandparents that I'm interacting with, I think for me, it's like wildly important that I get a variety of generations to be able to pour into these students. Like, you think about it, like if I had a youth group and I had a junior high group and all my leaders were like young 20-something-year-old college students who had all the energy, all the relatability, knew the slang, knew all this stuff. I mean, that's an asset for sure.
Yeah.
But when it comes to leading a student through like parents' divorce or loss, or leading them through relationships and things like that, it's like those are not the people I want to be relying on to be like, it's all good, bro. Like, dab me up, dog. Like, let's go play pickleball right now or something. You know what I mean? So
I understood some of the words you just said.
Yeah. That's very Sigma of you. Skibbity. Okay.
You lose
anyways,
me.
Even that, I'm
Skibbity?
Don't worry about it.
All right.
Ulysses is just chuckling over there.
You just
I feel
focus
like
on focus
in this
on
group,
Bean.
I might be the old soul.
Yeah.
You focus on Bean. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas on the flip side, if I have all of these really wise, experienced, close to the Lord, 60 to 70-year-old individuals who I'm bringing on to mentor, they might not be able to play pickleball with, old people are really good at pickleball, but they might not be able to engage the students in that, or engage the students in video games, or be able to make it to their graduations and to their ball games. And so it's like, I have quite a bit of impetus. Like, I have quite a bit of like, it's important for me to try to get all these different generations accounted for and to be able to pour into students. And so that's really where this comes into play for me, is like I see all the different generations that are alive right now and kicking, and I'm like, let's get as many of them represented as possible in the lives of these students, so they can learn how to be, they can learn how to use their influence in a Christian way from like the younger people, and they can learn like life skills like budgeting and balancing a checkbook maybe from some of the older generation. They can learn about what it looks like, because like any stage in their life, I'm hoping that somebody can speak into it. So I don't know, just a little bit about kind of how that plays out for me.
Dude, I didn't even think about, honestly, I'm still here just racking my brain. I didn't think about how that would have played out for you, so I'm glad that you spoke on it.
Do you guys have checkbooks?
No, I don't.
Actually,
I do.
You do?
I do have a checkbook, actually, yes.
Have you ever balanced it?
I've never balanced it, no.
No.
Because I'm writing checks so infrequently that I don't need to.
If I don't look at the numbers, James, it never
They don't exist.
It never haunts me.
Yeah.
I try to use girl math as much as possible.
If I can't see them, they can't see me.
That's right.
How will you know how much Taco Bell you can get?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I do look at.
I thought so.
I open up the checking account for 1 second, see I have more than $6, and I say I'm set for another meal.
Gosh, I can get a big Cheez-It meal from
I can
Taco
get a big Cheez-It Crunch Wrap.
Yeah,
Let's
that's the
go.
one. Man.
I've heard it's not worth it. I've heard it's terrible.
I said there's too many tomatoes, bro.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I love how we all look,
combo.
even Ulysses back there behind the soundboard, he's like looking at simultaneously.
I could recommend it. Like, nobody's a bigger Cheez-It fan than I am, and nobody's
also
also a bigger Taco Bell fan than I am. So,
all right, well,
I thought it was a
prove it.
match
How
made
many
in
reward
heaven.
points do you have in your Taco Bell app?
Dude, not enough for a reward. Stupid.
Come on, bro.
I'm
How
like,
big of a fan are you? I mean,
I'm a fire tier reward member. All right, quick, move us on to the next thing. Before
That's
people
only
start
because
checking out.
there's 2 tiers. If there was 5 tiers, you'd be on the 5th tier.
And it's because every year I do a Taco Bell Fiesta Olympics in junior high, and I order a ton of food on there.
Oh,
But
okay. Well, that
don't worry about
explains it.
I'm 23 points away from a free item, but you already know I'm going to be there today, now that we talked about it.
My gosh. Well, guys, honestly, this has been extremely fun. I've honestly missed this so much. And it was so fun to be able just to sit back in here with you guys and just shoot the breeze and talk about things that are happening around the church and how it's affecting the church as well. Guys, thank you so much for those of you that have been watching and been kind of coming along with us and listening for the first episode that we've been back for WAYT, the new podcast. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
So, man, thank you guys so much. Listen, please send a, I don't know,
let us know what your
follow,
thoughts are. What? Oh.
That too. You'll find us here on the weekends, so come and talk to us.
Is that what you should say?
Maybe. Is that what we're doing?
Like,
subscribe, leave a review.
Retweet.
Yeah, all of those.
All of those things.
Do all of that.
TikTok share
Just as soon as I figure out how to communicate that. to all generations.
Yep.
Oh man.
What's a TikTok?
All right. And that I think will end. Thanks so much, you guys. We love you. We'll see you this weekend. Bye.
Bye.